Three, two, one, action.
Well, let me tell you something, brother.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? Nice to virtually meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I am saying the name correct, right? Matthias, is that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this, by the way. I've been thinking about it for a couple of months. I was like, I want to reach out. I want to reach out. I would love to like kind of pick his brain about this. And so thank you so much for doing this. And when this interview drops, it will be a year of the Iron Claw. And
Oh,
as
wow.
you yeah, as you may have gathered from my initial message and the name of my podcast, the Wrestling and Film Podcast, it's a hybrid. It's the merging of the two, which I absolutely love and I'm fascinated with. So I thought I've spoken to directors, I've spoken to writers, and but talking to someone who actually captured it all, I thought was a whole other perspective. So thank you so much again for
Cool.
doing
My
this.
pleasure. My pleasure.
How's life over in Budapest, may I ask?
Rainy and cold, like in 48 hours from basically from scorching summer, we are experiencing like a pre-winter. It's crazy. It's like
Oh wow.
it's on a switch. Like
Like that.
there's no more 4 seasons. It's like it's two basically, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is. So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's similar over here, to be fair. It's
Mm.
sunny today, but we never know what we're getting. It's like changes at the drop of a dime.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, like I said, I just said there, a year of Iron Claw. And, by your reaction, it seems like it's gone by pretty fast. When I say that, like, how do you process that? Like, in reflecting back on a year, and because it was not just from someone like myself who loves these kind of things. It received universal plaudits. It was like, even some award recognition or nominations, and people even from the wrestling world, they loved it. So yeah, it seemed like a great all-round success.
It's I have very fond memories. I mean, for me working with Sean Durkin, the director, is an absolute joy. So this film was, not an exception. Like we've done two previous projects together. One, we did a limited series, and then we did a film called The Nest, both in the UK. And I really love Sean, and I really love working with him. So when I heard about this project, I was very excited that I get a chance to work with him again. And then, yeah, it's been a year, and I shot another film since then, and I just wrapped it a couple of weeks ago. So obviously, there's not a lot of time for me to kind of reminisce about these projects. Like, sure, I think about it and I really love it, but I haven't rewatched it yet. And I just have put it on a shelf, like in one of the good memories, the good memories shelf. Yeah, it was a great project to be a part of. It was a great experience working with these amazing actors, and my first real film in the States, meaning like it had a proper budget, and like it was made the way it should be made. So yeah, it was a great experience.
How did the film actually come about to you? Like you said, it was what you classify as your first like proper American film, big Hollywood release, and obviously you've worked with Sean before. Was it simply a case of Sean coming to you like, I've got this, I want to make this, and I want you to?
Yeah, I mean that's how it works. Like,
yeah,
obviously directors pick their DPs, and directors work on numerous projects, usually trying to get one of them off the ground. And this was a dream of Sean's for a long time. And then he met people from A24, and A24 said, yeah, we want this, and we're gonna help finance this. And they were amazing. And basically Sean got carte blanche. Like I don't think there was any like studio execs trying to interfere with anything. I mean, at least nothing got to me. Like, we could do whatever we wanted, obviously within the schedule and budget, but which was not huge, and not so it was very tight, but like it's good to work with limitations. I don't mind that. Like it's okay. You don't have to have 200 days to shoot a movie. If you have 35 or whatever we had, it's great. And Sean is fantastic about understanding the limitations he's facing, and he's able to work around them and come up with solutions that are going to fit the budget and fit the schedule. So yeah, it was great. And when I heard about it, it was funny because growing up in Hungary in the late 70s, 80s, wrestling was not something that was on my radar. Like it was not something I followed. I did not know anything about it. And whenever when I heard about this project, to be honest, I felt Sean was pulling my leg in a way, because I we never talked about wrestling, and I never would have imagined that this is something that is important for him. And I was like, oh, you want to make a wrestling movie? Sure. And I was like, are you serious? Yeah, I'm very serious. I was like, okay, okay, I guess I need to do some research. But I did not do any research. I basically read the script, which was fantastic, like it was rock solid, and there was nothing about it that needed research, because it wasn't about wrestling really. Like that was what I feel is the movie is so universal because it is not about wrestling. You don't have to understand wrestling. You don't have to know wrestling. You don't have to know anything. It's a much stronger and much more fundamental story, I think. And it takes place in a wrestling environment, sure, which is a very exciting world. The more I know about it, the more I find it interesting, and the more I got to know wrestlers and their stories. It's very, very fascinating, like who these guys are and why they are doing what they're doing and how they think about that and what is it that they're after. It's really fascinating. It's really beautiful. It's one of those things that you look at it and you would assume certain things, and once you scratch the surface, suddenly you realize that it's so much deeper and it's so much more. It's really beautiful, actually. It's very, very heartbreakingly beautiful if you think about it. It's just one of those cultural things that I find fascinating. There's a facade, but behind that it's just so much more. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that actually leads me perfect to my next question, because in an interview you said about kind of being like a novice to wrestling, you didn't know anything about it, and you said you were constantly shocked and surprised when you were like finding out about it, and also during the process, but in a great way. You were shocked and surprised. What did shock or surprise you the most? Was there anything that stood out? You're like, wow, I really didn't expect that, or this caught me off guard?
I think, being not involved in this world, I think it's very easy to be snobbish about this. Oh, this is just, these guys are just, ex-bodybuilders or wrestlers or whatever, and they're pretending to do whatever. It's easy to write it off. I think it's fairly easy to, look at it from a high pedestal and say, oh, this is just bullshit for the masses, really, like really being snobbish about it. And once I got, I don't say I really got to know these people, because I never had the time to really get into like deep conversations, but the little things, or even the little conversations I had with these wrestlers were just, they are people, they are just like everybody else. Like they seek love and they seek appreciation, and this is what they found for themselves. Like, okay, I'm gonna look a certain way and I'm gonna do what I have to do, and then it's all based on the reactions of the audiences. And I really like, when you look at something and it feels one thing, and then once you get to know it, it's so much more fragile. And it's so true with wrestling. Like, you have these crazy looking men and women, like massive, huge men and women, and you talk with them, or you interact with them, or you listen to them, and like, they're the sweetest, most caring people, and they, all they want is people to love them, and it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful. So I guess I came from this position of not knowing anything, and then the more I was involved with this project, the more I realized that, of course, like, these guys are, they look very different from me, but they are very similar. I found filmmaking where I'm seeking appreciation, where I'm seeking to be doing stuff that people would recognize, and it's the same thing, and they have totally different paths, but at the same time our desires are very similar, as human beings. Like, of course, we all want love and we all want appreciation. So it's just the realization of this very simple fact was very eye-opening.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a beautiful thing, and it's obviously true. Like everyone, like every profession, there's human stories within it.
Of course.
But for one reason or another, wrestling has an image that people don't see that, shall we say.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the general audience, what is known or not known. But it's fairly obvious for me now that it is, once you start to dig into, it would be amazing to do like really proper deep interviews with some of these people, because their stories are probably amazing, and I bet that 9 out of 10 would be an amazing movie, just to see how that person became who he or she is. It's probably fascinating.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would love for you to shoot more wrestling films based on what you did there. Just out of curiosity, did you watch? Because there was a really prominent documentary on the Von Erich, but about this exact story from the series Dark Side of the Ring, that they did in their first season. They did a documentary basically chronicling the fall of this family. Did you happen to? I know Sean Durkin, I believe, watched it. I'm not sure if you in your research if you watched that.
I remember watching a section. I don't think I watched the whole episode, but I did see some of it. Yeah, it's tricky. You don't really wanna. So there is actually, what I believe is there's actually a really there's real value in not knowing a lot, because then I can focus solely on the script, and I'm not biased by any knowledge that people would have. And I knew that Sean knows everything about this, so whatever is important for him is important, and whatever is not important for him is not important.
Yeah.
So whatever is in the script, I should be focusing on that, and that was the strategy I was following. And I didn't want to of course I want I watched some archive footage of these guys. I watched a little bit, but again, I didn't want to overdo this, because I that's like a rabbit hole. You can go down and then get lost, and then once you come up, you suddenly you don't know what's important and what's not. So I was like, okay, actually the fact that I don't know anything about this is a positive thing, and I'm gonna rely on Sean, and he was my only source basically. And I find that very useful for this project, because we didn't start conversations about things I thought might have been important, because I knew that everything kind of went through him and everything was going through his filter. And I was like, okay, listen, I don't need to do anything that I might have thought would have been interesting at that moment, because I knew that I could rely on whatever he had in his mind.
Yeah. So Sean was your research and your guiding force, as opposed
to
yeah,
he was leading in every way, and I was like, okay, I just needed to follow.
Yeah. One of the things you did do that I found really interesting, and please correct me if I say anything incorrect here, because I'm not a tech wizard like yourself. But
Me
you
neither.
shot you
Definitely not a tech wizard. That's the last thing I am.
but you shot this film in 35 millimeter film, I believe,
Yes,
if I'm correct,
that is correct.
because you one of the things you did was you said that the film is very raw, very organic, quite simple in the way that it's been filmed, which is brilliant, and I think it fit the film perfectly. For what reason was it that you shot in 35 millimeter film? And for those who are unaware of like what that means, could you explain that also?
Um, Film is an analog way of capturing images. You're basically using you're basically using film to capture a movie, as opposed to digital, which has become the go-to format. I have to say there's a massive renaissance of young filmmakers going back and shooting on film, and there are a lot of pros and cons for both methods. Sean is a huge believer in the 35 millimeter format. I am as well, and I think the easiest way to kind of see the difference is to do a test where you would shoot something on digital and you would shoot something on film, and you put it side by side on a big screen. And yes, there are amazing digital cameras out there, but for me, whenever I do this side by side comparison, when I'm looking at an image that was captured on film, I just connect to it way deeper and much more. And I don't know how to explain this. I can come up with like foreign sounding words and crazy terminology. It doesn't matter. I just feel that it looks way more beautiful. And when I say beautiful, I don't mean pretty. I mean there's a stronger connection. And most of my work was shot on film for this exact reason. I work with directors who feel the same, and we share the same sensibilities. So when we started to talk about Iron Claw, it wasn't a question that it's gonna be shot on film as well. It's
Would you say there's an authenticity with the 35 millimeter?
Again, these are the foreign sounding words. I don't know. Like you can come up with your own vocabulary, how you feel about it. It's a very subjective thing, and you can't really pin it down why certain people feel the way they feel and other people feel different. Again, it's for me it's the best format there is. It's the most beautiful, and it's the most organic and emotional, in a way. And it's a very emotional story, so you wanted something that captures that emotion. It's a lot of the film is on faces, obviously, and the way film captures a face is very different than how digital captures a face. So again, I can go about this all day, but at the end of the day, if you look at it, you don't even have to know anything about this, I think. But once you start watching it, especially on a big screen, it's gonna have a certain effect on you, and you might be able to, put your finger on it, or you might not. But it's not even your job as an audience member to recognize this. Obviously, us filmmakers, we want to have the biggest impact on our audiences, emotionally or however. So we want to pick those tools that we think are the best to achieve this.
Yeah, no, and I think it definitely worked for this, but for sure, because knowing the Von Erichs and knowing like wrestling history, as big as they were also not like perhaps global like we see some wrestlers today, like a John Cena, and wrestling on like the biggest of biggest platforms. They were obviously Texas based, and predominantly their fame was more within that realm, not as global as say The Rock or a John Cena, and on the brightest of lights, shall we say.
It
So
was different
perhaps,
times, you know,
yeah, yeah.
pre-internet, you know, whatever, satellite television. So yeah, it was definitely like that.
But for that reason, I would say like it's perhaps the way you shot it was even more true to the story because of that kind of the time and the feel. I feel like it meshed perfectly with
Yeah,
capturing that.
yeah. We also had this concept of shooting the fights differently as time progressed, right? So we started with less saturated colors, less light, a little bit more contrast, and as things kind of blew up and became bigger, and suddenly it was televised all over the US, it became more colorful, it became more crisp. So we had this visual structure that was following the development of the success of the One Erichs.
That actually, now that you've said that, like actually now, because I watched it again yesterday and I was like, oh, actually, no, that's true. You did do that because the very first Fritz von Erich match is black and white, which obviously was
Yeah,
representing of the time, and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it goes,
That's the extreme version, but every other fight that was Kevin's fight, we
yeah.
we had a little bit of, again, it's super subtle,
Mm.
not nothing in the, I don't think the filmmaking we do is, I hope it's never like obvious. So it's yeah, we really did some subtle changes here and there.
I mean, that's when it's best, though, isn't it? It should be seamless. So I should probably, you know, if I'm in some ways yesterday or when I was watching it, I was maybe studying it a little bit more than just watching it as an audience member. But like you did things that were so small, but I added so much. Like, for example, there was the bit where Kevin, when he's wrestling Harley Race, and then Harley Race is like beating him up, and then David slides into like make a save. And then when David's kind of fighting with Harley Race, the camera is very erratic, kind of
Mm-hmm.
follow it like following the action in within the brawl, and it's very close knit, and it's something so small, but it was so perfect in that moment. And again,
Thank
that
you.
yeah, but like because I think I read in an interview you said you gave a lot of credit to what was done outside of the camera, props, sets, everything, but even little things like that obviously were on you, and that was added so much to it.
That's filmmaking, actually.
Yeah.
Like these decisions make up what we do as filmmakers. Like, okay, so what is the best way to shoot this? And sometimes you wanna put this in words, you wanna come up with a theory, but sometimes it's just based on gut feeling. You know, when David jumps in, it should feel chaotic. And you might talk about it or might not. You might just make this decision on the day, but there's a reason we chose that, and there's a reason we felt that it needs to be very close, it needs to be extremely chaotic, because the moment should feel chaotic. It should be a moment that was decided at that, when David jumps in, it should feel for the audience that this was a decision that David just came up with that moment. So even the filmmakers would be, in a way, like, it's a twist, but like we would have been surprised if we would have been there. Oh, suddenly it's here, so I don't know where I'm gonna point the camera because I didn't know this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. If I want to put a theory about it, like, that was kind of like, looking back at it, like, I don't think I came up with this then. I just felt that, like, that's the way to shoot it. And then Sean and I, we are so much in sync. Like, we think alike 99.9% of the time, or almost, I don't know. So it's like we don't really have to discuss these things. We Again, most of the time I'm just, I do something and he would say, adjust certain things or not. Like, we are just in sync in terms of our taste and how we approach, shooting certain these scenes. So yeah, I think we were like, okay, this is how it should feel. And when Harley Race is pushed out of the ring, he's barely in shot. Like, his feet wide the frame, and then I'm staying with David. So it's like, yeah, and it feels chaotic, and it feels surprising, and that was the whole point.
Yeah, no, and it would, like I said, it was such a small thing, but it's
Mm.
those small things that can make the difference, and it added a lot. So kudos to both of you for that. But when you were shooting the wrestling films, like I said, it's something completely new, and it's like to you as far as like the world was new to you. What was the biggest challenges that you faced, or that you found maybe quite unique when you were trying to film the wrestling portions of the film?
Um, to be honest, it's I did a lot of the wrestling inside the ring handheld, and I've done a massive amount of handheld work in my life, and I really love shooting handheld when it's appropriate. Um, and we had this idea how we're gonna be creating the shots for the different fight sequences. And shooting a fight is not that different from shooting dance, or not that different from shooting walk and talk. It's a bit more dynamic, sure, but it's all about me anticipating and me knowing the choreography physically as much as I can. So for most of the fight sequences, obviously we had rehearsals with our wrestling coach, and we had rehearsals with our stunt team. So I was able to spend a considerable amount of time basically learning the movement, right? Yeah. If they're doing this, I need to be here. When they do this, I need to be there. I need to go low, or all these things. So it's basically became muscle memory.
Yeah.
And once you have an understanding, once you have some practice in this, then they could have been ballet dancers. It doesn't matter. There's movement, and I anticipate. I know what's gonna happen. So I'm not reacting to some things. So I'm not late. I know what's about to happen, so I can design my movement in a way where I'm at the perfect position every frame. Yeah. And of course, because it's handheld, it's never perfect. But again, that's another that's the whole point. So yeah. I don't think there's like a massive difference, again, shooting wrestling to any other thing that's dynamic. It's very enjoyable. It's like you're very, it's like you're nervous and you're excited at the same time, and there's a lot of excitement. And what is amazing is because we were surrounded by all these professionals, I knew that I can be bold and I can be close, because I knew that if anything is going wrong, they're gonna pull me away, or they're gonna stop the whole action or whatever. And that is something that is crucial. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I hope I'm not getting in the way, or I hope, so you can be as close as you want, because you know that somebody's gonna pull you out if something goes wrong, or if the actors do something different. And that's when you're working with an amazing crew.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I can close my eyes and I know I can start running with the camera on my shoulder. They're gonna make sure I'm okay, and they're gonna make sure the camera is okay, and they're gonna make sure that the actors are okay. So it's fantastic. It's very liberating to be working with such amazing people, because then you can really focus on what's important.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's also just incredibly impressive as well to do it the way you did it, because it's, I mean, of course you're a professional and you've done it and you are great at your job, but that is a challenge to almost do the choreography with them essentially, in a way, and then you're following them, and I imagine very long days doing that as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know Chavo Guerrero was, who's obviously a very famous wrestler, was heavily involved in the choreography, and so I'm imagining there was a lot of work with Chavo, who was obviously constructing it, and so I imagine yourself and Chavo had a lot of work together.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, the stunt team was involved as well, so it was great, because Chavo was he totally understands camera. He totally understands what works for camera and what doesn't. So as they were building the choreographies, we were able to constantly adjust. Like, oh yeah, this is great, but because I'm here, what if we turn this 180? What if we do this towards camera instead of away from? So we were, and he totally got it, and we were very quick, like constructing these choreographies, because he was like, oh yeah, and I'm gonna do this, and then you can be there. Like, okay, that's great. So we were just building on each other's ideas constantly, and it was really a joy to work with him.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great to hear. And I've heard like similar things from everyone else, and he seems to be doing a wonderful job, because I think he was also part of Young Rock and things like that. And well, obviously there's a reason, because he's very good. One thing I was also interested was it a challenge to capture the authenticity of the matches? Because some of these matches you're recreating from real life. It's like, so was it a challenge to kind of capture that while still keeping it visually consistent with the rest of the movie?
I think for me, less so. It was more about recreating the spaces and the venues. So it's more like a production design question, I feel. For me, again, I did not watch like the original fights, because I was like, okay, there were 30,000 people in Texas, or however many, I don't even know, and we knew that we won't be able to have that. So we were sure Sean was all over it, and I know that James, our production designer, he did everything in his power to create the environments to match whatever was in the original. But at the same time, it's not a documentary, right? So we don't, sure, we want to be as close to the real facts as possible, but at the end of the day, this film is its own thing. We don't have to, and we can't, and it's fine. It's not like, oh yes, but I watched the real one, and on the fourth row there was a guy with a red cap. Why who cares? It's, if the scene works emotionally, if the scene works as a scene, then who cares? It doesn't matter. And I think we were able to achieve so many beautiful things. And yeah, we had a certain budget, we had certain limitations. Of course, you can never have 40,000 audience members in a Texas arena, like, of course. So it's fine. And I don't think as a filmmaker we should over worry about these things, because it is what it is. It doesn't matter. That's how I feel. So if the scene works, then it's fine.
Yeah, so cinematic liberty might be the term there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was speaking to, I spoke to a few members of the Dark Side of the Ring crew, and they were fans, but they were also obviously filmmakers. And one of the things one of them said was that wrestling lends itself so well to cinema, because from obviously how it's presented in the fictional sense, there's these larger than life characters and personas, but also then the behind the scenes stories, these human stories are just almost surreal. Like, people don't believe them. I mean, this Von Erich story is just, people wouldn't believe it if I just said it.
Yeah.
Like, so this person commits suicide, then this person commits suicide. It's just, it's just unbelievable. From your experience now, do you agree with the fact that wrestling, it just does lend itself perfectly to cinema?
For these exact reasons, absolutely. And again, I don't have a huge amount of knowledge about wrestling, other than the little I know about the Von Erichs now. But absolutely, like, the whole setup is it's almost, there's a lot of theater in this, and theater is just one step away from cinema. And I mean, absolutely. I think it's fairly obvious why that is.
Yeah. And when you're filming this, like, I know you said in an interview that you're just capturing, obviously, what, you're relying on, the crew to present the world, and then you'll just capture that. But for example, you said
Yes and no.
Yeah. But when there's a lot of close-ups in this film, for obvious reasons, because obviously it's the emotion and seeing what's kind of within the characters. When you're, say, for example, one of the scenes where, Zac Efron, who plays Kevin, comes back from the match and he's sitting there and he's almost just processing what's happened. He's almost looking broken physically and emotionally, and you're doing that close up. Is there something you're looking for from the actor, from Zac, when you're filming that?
That's not my job. That's Sean. That's Sean, because they obviously had conversation about what that moment is and what that shot is trying to achieve. And that's performance. That's Zac understanding what the moment is, Zac understanding Sean's concept about what that shot needs to be. My job is the same. I need to understand what that moment is, and I need to understand what that shot is. And I have certain tools to emphasize this moment. And just going back to your comment, I'm not just recording whatever is in front of me. Obviously, I have many tools at my disposal to create an image that is telling you a story in itself, or describing an emotion, or helping the actor to create these moments. And I have many tools at my disposal, and I'm using all of those tools very subtly, hopefully, but I am. And yeah, and that's my job, is to understand, again, each and every shot, why it's there in the movie, and then using the tools I have control over to help to create these moments. So I am not I'm not talking to the actors. I'm not I might be talking to Sean about certain things, but again, we are in sync, and we are trying to achieve the same thing. It's all of us. It's Sean, it's Zac, and it's myself, trying to get to something that we all feel is the right thing. And obviously it's Sean who's going to say whatever he needs to say to go even further, or whenever he feels that we have it, it's his call. I might come up with ideas, before or after we shot it, and to do one more version of it. Sean might like my idea, might not like my idea, but it's like I know the mechanics of filmmaking. I know, what can help this moment, and Sean might take my advice or not, again, depending on what he's after. But sometimes we try to do versions. Sometimes we do a version that is more enhanced. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we know exactly what we're after, and once we have it, we move on. So yeah, that's how it works.
No, I mean, no, that's and not to, it was by no means like trying to downplay what you're doing. Obviously,
No,
it's fine. But no, it was, and I understand what you mean. And one of the things that, like you saying that, and you played with different ideas as well. One of the shots that sticks in my head, because it's also almost like the hook of the Iron Claw, because it was in the trailer, the beginning of the trailer. It's where the camera's close to the rope, and Zac kind of rises, and then he runs the ropes intensely, and like when he goes to the opposite rope, he's like, kind of blurs out, and then it'll come back into focus when he comes back to the rope that's close to the camera. Again, absolutely incredible shot. I love that. And like when I remember watching the trailer, and that just hooked me. And obviously we had Zac's voice playing over the top of it and things of that nature. But how did that shot, or how was that coming, building that? Because that's very, very particular, the way you did that. And like I said, it was brilliant, and it became, I think, one of the big shots of the movie, shall I say.
It's funny because I'm laughing because we had a certain amount of time with Zac to shoot him alone in the ring, getting ready. And we had certain ideas what we wanted to do, but some of the moments was not very clear in my head, at least. And then Sean said, yeah, we need a moment of him running back and forth. And then I was like, okay, let me show you something. And this was, 95% of the time it's not the case. But this time I was like, okay, I have an idea. I have an idea. I want to show you something. So I set this shot up, and Zac started to do the run. And I'm looking through the viewfinder, and I'm like, yeah, this is the trailer of the movie. Like, this was obvious, like, because it just felt so perfect in terms of what the film is about, and how the simplicity of this shot, and the grit and the sweat and the light and the color and the everything about it was like this. I knew that moment. Well, this is our trailer, basically. So we shot it as like, yeah, this is gonna this is gonna be. Oh, I thought like just that shot could have been a teaser. Like, imagine like watching that for like 30 seconds and just put Iron Claw over it. Like, okay, this could work, because it just and this was like day 30 or 35 or something like that. I don't remember, but it's like towards the end of the shoot, and at least that's how I remember it now. And yeah, I just felt that by that time we were so in sync, and my understanding of what this is was like developed way more than in the beginning. And like I was able to find this one image, and in that simplicity, it just tells so much about what this is, and it just basically became almost like a symbolic shot for the whole movie. And it just felt very right.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely perfect, and also kudos to you for that, because that's that's if that's you, that was a gem.
I take the compliments for that. I do. I don't have a lot of moments I could be proud of, but that one, I'm like, yeah, I take the compliments for that.
I mean, it's incredible. Also, the fact that it was in the head as soon as you did the shot that you're like, yeah, trailer.
It just, it just felt, yeah, it just felt like that. It just, what I just described, it just felt, it sums up everything that's, or more, so many of the ideas that's in the film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you may have just answered my next question, actually, because I was going to ask, like, do you have a moment when you look back that was either a favorite or most memorable, and it could be in a positive sense, or perhaps one that was the most challenging to do, a challenging day that you kind of had to overcome?
I just enjoy working with these amazing actors so much. Just I have my eye on the viewfinder, and I'm sitting like 4 feet from these amazing actors where they're doing these outstanding performances, and that is just such a joy to be a part of. And so I don't have like a specific moment. And in terms of what was challenging, I mean, filmmaking is challenging.
Yeah.
Very, very challenging. So there are shots that are technically more difficult, and there were moments that they seem very simple but was challenging for other reasons. Shooting in tiny spaces can be really nerve-wracking and super challenging, but you don't, when you watch the film, you don't, shooting in the bedroom of Kevin and Pam was actually the most challenging thing. The window was in the wrong place. I didn't have any room to do any lighting, so it was, I mean, but who cares, first of all, and then second of all, you don't see that in the film. So it's yeah. And then we did these massive Steadicam shots at dusk, when the Steadicam starts on a camera crane and then steps off and then goes through all the audience members and then goes into through the entrance. Yeah, that's a challenging shot, but in a different way. So yeah, it's all very challenging.
I actually also teach film to some students on my weekends, and I always tell them like it's these little things that you guys will never think about that are often the most annoying or challenging. Like you just described
Absolutely.
there, the window and the lighting in the little bedroom, which like I was like, you guys would never think of this, but this is the most annoying stuff when
Yeah,
you're having to film.
absolutely. It's always like that, and it's never easy. When yeah, it's just never easy.
Now looking back, so I kind of asked this at the beginning, but like when it's been a year, and do you have a like I guess a memory from like when the film released and you heard certain plaudits praise for the film that maybe stuck with you and you like I don't know meant a lot? Because I know Zach said when obviously this was from a different perspective because he played Kevin, but he said when Kevin told me that yeah you did a great job, Zach was like that was it, that was the biggest compliment he could have got for the film. Like was there anything on your end that you heard about the film, maybe not specifically about your
Uh,
work but just in general?
I was lucky enough to be able to attend the Texas premiere
Mm.
of Iron Claw, and that was very special. Like usually when you're there, the premiere is usually a film festival and it's all film people. But in Texas, we had this amazing home crowd, and there were a lot of wrestlers as well. So it was like a
Mm.
very Texan and very there was a lot of wrestling guys, and they had so much fun, and they were like devastated by the drama, and it was just beautiful to get this very raw reaction from people who were super involved in this world, or who are still super involved in this world. So that was for me one of the highlights for sure. Yeah, I think that was the key moment for me.
Yeah, no, and I mean I think that's a perfect way to conclude because that's a wonderful memory. And can I just say again, Master, thank you not only for the time to speak to me today, but for the film, because honestly, this is like these projects are like my dream. I absolutely love how these come together. You know, there's been films like The Wrestler, Fighting with My Family, but for many reasons, I think this was perhaps the best I've seen combination of the two of wrestling and film. I think it shows the beauty of wrestling, but it obviously shows the trials and tribulations of it as well, and it shows the kind of the overall image in a way that I think hasn't been done before. And obviously the drama and the performances and everything involved is just incredible. So,
Oh,
and
makes
you
me
being a
very happy. Thank you so much.
no, you're very welcome. And as a fan, thank you because I think it was incredible. And I would love if you could if you film another one because I know obviously there's more projects, especially in recent years, in seemingly more and more projects about wrestling. And I think you guys, if you and Sean ever want to do another one, I would love that. I don't know how you feel about that, but I would love that.
Listen, it's just if you have a couple of millions of dollars, let me know. I'm sure Sean is gonna jump on the opportunity, and I'll
Well,
be there.
I have to speak to some people.
Please do.
Thank you again, Matyás. Like I said, true pleasure, and well, I wish you all the best for your continued success.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.